when we channel that anger out of our body, we get well, we get healthy again, physically and mentally. And so my depressions, went away, but I also battled insomnia for about 30 years,
Hmm.
off and on, but a lot of on. And just about 4 years ago now, so I'm in my mid 50s, I started allowing myself to really feel the anger at my father for how abusive and admitting actually how abusive he is. I didn't want to see that for most of my life because, we want at least one good parent. Most of us are okay with throwing one under the bus because they're not good. The other one we want to cling to and just we want to believe they're good and that their intentions are good. And the light started coming on. You know what? He's actually not much better than the other parent. And so
Gosh.
I started channeling my anger out of my body by holding him accountable with, I'd write emails because he wouldn't listen on the phone. He would just hang up, of course. That's how people like that are. So emails were the only way to be heard, gave him an ultimatum eventually and just said, if you want to have a relationship with me, you're going to have to apologize and own the past abusive behavior. And you're going to have to become a safe person in the present because you're not a safe person. And he chose to not take me up on that. And so I haven't spoken to him in over 2 years now. And when I started finally doing all that, feeling my anger, being responsible with my anger by having this boundary, giving him this ultimatum, my insomnia vanished. I got off all my medications. I now sleep like a baby
Wow.
after 30 years. So that's one of my favorite stories.
Well, and there's hope in that, right? Like there are manifestations of what's going on the inside that come out in lots of different ways, whether it's insomnia or weight gain or weight loss, or there's lots of different ways that this comes out. I don't think we often look at ourselves as one whole thing though, right? Like we
Mhm.
tend to look at, oh, okay, well, my arm hurts. That must just be something going on there. But it actually could be frozen shoulder from perimenopause, right? Like we're not
Yeah.
putting the pieces together. Have you always
Yeah.
been a puzzle putter together, a problem solver?
No, in fact, I never would have believed any of this even a few years ago. But now I see it like in myself with so many of my clients. I see it. And then, like I said, there's research now linking autoimmune disorders with, people holding it all inside. There's so much evidence to actually substantiate this. But I will say, I view insomnia as my inner child, like our inner child trying to wake us up, if you will,
Mm.
and say, hey, do right by me. Do right by me. Like, listen to me, attune to me. And I think little Bronwyn, I was neglecting her. Because we really choose, am I going to win that parent's approval or continue trying to win that parent's approval? And if I do so, I'm going to abandon me, my own true core self. And that's what I was doing. That was a trajectory that, all of my clients have had to choose, and we have to choose. Am I going to prioritize my own well-being and give myself that approval that at the end of the day I need to give? Or am I going to keep, trying to win my dad's favor and approval? Or do I need to just give up on that? And I was able to allow that boundary to happen because I was able to give myself that approval. And then I'm like, okay, dad, I'm good with or without you. I'm whole now. I don't need you.
That had to have been a big pivotal point for you for a lot of different reasons. So good for you for recognizing that, it wasn't doing him any harm by you feeling all the things you were feeling. It was all on the inside of you. And I think
Mhm.
if I had to guess, there are people listening right now who have had relationships like that, whether it was a parent or another family member or a friend that they thought they had to keep around for too long, that was causing all of these things inside of us that aren't exactly ideal, right? Like they're definitely not what we want. So tell me about your ideal client. What kinds of people do you tend to work with and who do you help?
Yeah, most of my clients have anxiety, but I do see, all different clients. But yeah, a lot of anxiety. And again, these are people I relate to them. They're usually what we call people pleasers.
Mhm.
They usually have what I call approval addiction, where they want everyone's approval, their boss's approval, their professor's approval, their spouse's approval. And when we do that, again, we are abandoning ourselves. We're abandoning our core selves, and our core self, our inner child, if you will, gets angry
Mhm.
and is saying, "Hey, what about me?" And then we get a headache that doesn't go away. We get, you know, GI issues. We get all these symptoms. We get depressed. And so, yeah, my job is kind of, I like to think of myself almost like as, I guess, an emotional chiropractor, like bringing alignment within someone where they are, creating those healthy boundaries. And what I do, on my own podcast that I have, I lead my listeners in the same thing I do with my client, which is what I call an integration exercise. So I help them integrate with their inner child and become whole, really, because what an integrated person is, just like an integral number that we learned about in
Uh-huh.
school, is a whole number or a whole person where we align with ourselves and we start doing right by ourselves and stop betraying ourselves. And a big part of that means that we have to dislodge a lot of shame.
Mm.
Shame is not an emotion, it's a feeling. And I mean that it's not, humans don't come into the world, babies don't come into the world with shame. They come into the world with every emotion. But shame is a social construct. Shame is not native to humans,
Mm.
and it's given to us primarily by our attachment figures, our parents. And shame, I don't see shame as like anger, where anger, it's there for a good reason. It's valid. We need to work with it and be responsible for it. Shame isn't like that because it doesn't want to move us like other emotions want to move us in a way,
Mm.
like anger does. Shame actually makes us stuck. It makes us debilitated. It stagnates us and we just don't go anywhere. And shame is a liar. Shame is not valid. Shame is a liar because it says to us, "Oh, you made a mistake. You are a mistake."
Yeah.
It says, "Oh, you didn't just make some poor choices. You're a loser.
Mm.
You suck." Right? It's a liar, and it lies to us and it harms us and it harms our relationships, because then if I'm in a relationship with someone and they're like, "Hey, Bronwyn, I need to give you some feedback. Like when you say this, it's really hurtful. I know you don't mean it to be." But if I have shame, I don't hear that. I
Right.
actually hear, "You know what, Bronwyn, you suck so bad." That's all I hear. And now I can't take in what they're saying. I'm just going to defend and I'm going to say, "You're blaming me," and I'm going to gaslight you. Right. And so it distorts everything and it just makes us very, very sick.
Mm. So, as someone who has quite a few family members who struggle with anxiety and have, very real manifestations of that, I hear not just what you're saying, but I think I see it happening. And I know that there's like this rumination on
Mhm.
the bad voice, right? The voice that isn't telling you the truth. Right? Just because we think
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it's the truth. But those are the things that they get stuck in. And when they get stuck, it is often exactly as you're saying, you're not good enough, you're a loser, you everything
Yeah.
you do is bad because
Yeah.
you made a mistake or you didn't know something or whatever. So how do you break the cycle? How do you go from, okay, I'm ruminating on this thing and I'm feeling the shame that you just told us isn't a natural feeling at all. How do I stop that? How do I stop the noise?
Yeah. Well, so that's part of the integration exercise that I do. But I will say a big part of that is, so let's say I'm working with you, Christy. So I would ask you where that shame shows up in the present. So let's say for you, your trigger, where your triggers are. So let's say you're triggered. Well, I'll give you my example. When I'm triggered is when my husband, I'm talking to him and he looks away. I'm so triggered by that. I know that's a me problem, not a him problem, but like I know it's a trigger. So I would just close my eyes, maybe, 30 minutes after it happens and say, "What do I feel in my body when he looks away while I'm talking?" "Oh, I feel this thing in my gut." Like
Yeah.
this, it usually shows up in our gut. Shame lives in the gut. And so let's say you're my client now, and this is you. I would say, "Okay, Christy, so I want you to close your eyes. I want you to feel that sensation in your gut. And now I want you, as you focus on it, just to let your mind float back to the first time you remember ever feeling that same sensation."
Hmm.
Because the body remembers, the
Mm.
brain doesn't, but the body does. And so let's say now you're like, "Yeah, it was when I was 3 and I gave my mom this bouquet of wildflowers and she just looks so not happy, you
Mm,
know? And so then I would say, okay, so Christy, I want you to imagine that you, adult Christy, enter that memory and you go to little Christy and you get down on her level and look her in the eyes and you say, little Christy, I see you.
mm,
And I see how sad you feel and rejected and how much shame you feel right now because your mom was sick and you got her bouquet and you thought it would bring a smile to her face and there's nothing. And I don't blame you for feeling that way. But you know what? I need you to know what I know now. And I need you to see what I see. I need you to see, little Christy, that our mom's lack of response to us, not just this time, but probably many times, is not a reflection of a you problem, little
mm,
Christy. It's not a reflection of you lacking in any way. It is 100% of mom, a reflection of mom. Maybe she has a personality disorder, or maybe she's got depression,
mm.
lifelong depression. And I need you to put all that shame that you feel as a result of mom's lack of, affect in this big cardboard box. And we're just going to take it right now and we're going to throw it in the middle of the ocean and just let it sink down to the bottom because that shame doesn't belong to you.
Mm.
It never has. It's not yours. And so that's part of what I do with the integration exercise.
Well, and thank you for taking us through that exercise because I think many of us do transfer responsibility from someone else onto ourselves and say, "Oh, it's my fault that this thing happened. It's my fault. I thought this and now this happened." And that's really not the connection that is accurate. But when we hold on to those kinds of reactions or those connections, then we make them accurate, right? We make them the thing that we remember. I know I'm not going to be able to find the exact quote right now, but I had a somebody on the podcast a couple weeks back that talked about perception and just being words that we don't have to believe, right? Like we're constantly creating assumptions that are just that, and assumptions don't get us anywhere. So thank you for not just walking us through the exercise, but for doing this professionally after you realized that nobody could help you in that
Mm,
space. What a beautiful way to give back and to
yeah.
recognize that, you're not the only one. So I have to ask because one, it's my favorite question. And two, I think you're going to have a fascinating answer. If you had to describe productive joy, how would you describe that?
Yeah. So I would say productive joy is when we are true to ourselves, when we stop betraying ourselves, we start treating ourselves like we matter because we do. And that doesn't mean that other people don't matter, but there are a lot of people in our lives usually who only believe that they matter,
Mhm,
or they at least act like it. They might
mhm,
not ever admit that they
mhm.
believe that, but they sure act like it. And so when we start to say, hey, toxic person, you matter, it's true, and I do too.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to push back. I'm not going to let you talk like that to me. I'm not going to let you do that because I matter. And once we start doing that, once we start respecting ourselves and being true to ourselves, that is so not selfish. That is so the opposite of selfish. And what happens is human beings start to flourish like trees. And like when a tree flourishes, it actually creates a better world for everyone because it creates shade, it creates habitat, it creates even fruit for thousands of little creatures and humans, and everyone benefits. So when we start to do that, when we start to live like we matter and do right by ourselves, it makes the world a better place. And that's why I love doing what I do for a living.
Well, you've created your own productive joy, right? You've figured
Yes.
out how to give back to others and help others see their worth. I read a book by Jamie Kern Lima called Worthy, and in it, it talks about the difference between self confidence and self worth, and understanding that you don't earn self worth, you are born with self worth.
Yes.
But we tend to live in the self-confidence space and we can be super confident and walk into a space, but the reality is we don't believe we belong there. We hide. We're, constantly questioning our worth, two different things. And in reading that book and listening to you, in doing some searching at 48 years old, I am learning more and more that others can't see me as worthy if I can't see myself as worthy. And I can't prove to them that I see they have worth if I don't value myself. So what you were saying about creating shade and being that tree that flourishes, what I see in that is an opportunity for me to care enough about myself to not take anybody's crap, essentially, right? Like, just say, nope, I am worth more than that, so that others can do the same. That doesn't mean that you get to be a jerk, and that doesn't mean that you get to bully people around. It actually is exactly the opposite. It's, I matter enough that I am going to respect myself, which means I'm also going to respect you. And
Yeah.
there's just beauty in that. Thank you for shedding light on that in a way that just makes a lot of sense. And I love that you discovered that later in life
Yeah.
and we're able to go back and say, okay, so here's what I've learned, and here's what other people need to know in that space too. That's pretty beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I mean, I wish I didn't suffer as much as I did for so long, but I have a lot of empathy for people who are suffering. That's for sure.
Well, and I don't know if you've ever listened to any of Ed Milet's podcasts, but he says that we're the most capable and most equipped to help the person we used to be. And
Wow.
right? There is power in that statement, and I think you're living it. Is you are here helping people who are where you were, so they don't have to stay there, and that's special. So before I ask you our rapid fire questions, tell us a little more about your podcast. What's it called? Where could people find it?
Yeah, it's called Angry at the Right Thing. So, and it's about anger and shame and even emotions like hatred. We get into all the things that no one ever talks about. And it's a lot of it is me leading people in exercises as well. So it's really fun and it's helped a lot of people. And that's my goal, is just to get out to people who aren't just my own client.
Right. Well, you're spreading that productive joy. And
Yeah.
and that's what I see, right? That's
Yeah.
Chat GPT and I named this podcast together
Oh,
because
oh,
well, because I think if we don't make work fun, people quit. But I didn't want to just talk about work on my podcast because I don't think it's just about work. I think that productive joy, when Chat came up with it, kind of personified all of it, right? Because productive joy is what you decide it is, and it can happen in the workplace, and it can happen personally, and it can happen anywhere in between. And I think when we are finding that combination of things, really great things can happen. And that's what you're helping people do. You're helping them find the combination of not just false positivity or toxic positivity or whatever you want to call it, but joy is a choice. And if you are ruminating in the anger instead of letting it pass through you, then you've
yes.
stopped the natural flow of things, and
Yeah.
you've harbored something that wasn't meant to be harbored, and then that's just poison. That's yucky.
Yes. Yes. That's also true for the emotion of hatred, that we don't want to harbor it. We need to let it pass through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You have to acknowledge it. You can't pretend it
Which,
doesn't exist.
which means we have to acknowledge it exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you excited?
I guess. Yes.
Yeah. You're like, I'm not sure, Christy.
I'm
This.
nervous. Yeah.
Okay. Your first question. No wrong answers. What's your definition of fun?
Moving my body to music.
Oh, I love it. What's your favorite kind of music?
I don't know the genre. It's ethereal, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect. Perfect. Okay. How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
Hmm. Yeah. I just don't really care what other people think anymore. So that's a good way to start.
And did that start at 39 or did that start more recently than that?
Yeah. The last few years.
Yeah, I'm learning the older I get, the less I care because this is who I am. I'm so sorry. If I am one of my favorite phrases, Elise Myers said it, is if I'm too much, go find less. I can't help it. This is legitimately how I wake up in the morning. Like, this is just me. So
I love that.
okay, so you can totally steal that too. It's not mine, it's Elise Myers. Okay, how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Oh, well, Yeah, I would just tell people if I had the opportunity, like, I'm not having a good day, so don't expect too much, you know?
Yeah. No, it sounds like just honesty. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it. Okay, last question, and it's going to be a tough one. People by nature can only hold on to one major thing in a 30-minute time span. So, what's the one major thing that you really want people to walk away from this podcast knowing?
Yeah. So life is too short to betray yourself.
Hmm. Well, that's rather mic drop-ish. So, thank you, Braun.
Like that.
Mic drop and scene. That's perfect. Life is too short. And so we've got to be thoughtful about our thoughts and what we hold on to and what we choose to let go of. Thank you for walking people through that process. And thank you for sharing your brilliance on productive joy. I know that people were able to gather lots of learning and wisdom from you.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And listeners, I'm telling you, great guests with great ideas that give you that shot of B12, that instant nugget of wisdom that you can use. So use it. Find something that Bronwyn said that you can actually implement today because there's no reason to hold on to all of that anger. Instead, let's find a way to let it go and let it run its course so that we can be whole and complete. And friends, I need you to figure out a way today and every day to turn fun into action.